Time is quickly running out if you've still got your first wildcard chip left. And in this video, I'm going to go through my favourite wildcard draft. Okay, we're going to start off then by looking at goalkeeper and defenders. Now, one thing I will say about this draft before I get into things, I've put it together in a way that absolutely everyone can afford. I think it costs around 99 million. So there should be, everyone watching this video should have enough money to buy this team. And so much so that potentially you have more in the bank where you could potentially upgrade some of these players. I've gone for Sells in goal, who I think, in my opinion, is the best sub 5 million goalkeeper in the game. He's made 2.7 saves per 90 so far this season, so he's nearing that sort of bonus point marker almost every game. And as they've proven, I think Nottingham Forest are genuinely one of the best defences in the league this season. Second, if not third best defence in the league, in my opinion. They do have Tottenham at home, though, in Gameweek 18. But you can see there, Fabianski on the bench has Southampton. So if you don't back Sells to keep that clean sheet against Tottenham, you can flick Fabianski in quite easily. And then Sells after that has Everton and Wolves. And I would suggest certainly Everton. I mean, Everton v Nottingham Forest feels like a banker of a 0-0. And so does Wolves and Forest, to be honest. Or, you know, I think he's got a good chance of keeping a clean sheet in both of those games, basically. Whereas Fabianski's got Liverpool and Man City. So potentially you could start Fabianski in Game Week 18 if you don't fancy Sells. And then play Sells for Everton and Wolves. Another goalkeeper I really like, and I'll go through alternatives in each of these positions at the end of the video, but one goalkeeper that I bang on about in pretty much every video is Onana of Man United. Despite them hitting a bit of a bad patch in terms of form, I have said this throughout the season and right at the start. I personally back Onana to be the top scoring goalkeeper in the game this season. So, you know, I've gone for Sells to make it more affordable, but I would say, you know, given that I said he's going to be the highest scoring goalkeeper in the game, you could go for Onana as well. I've gone for a Timber and Gabriel Arsenal double up. I've gone for Timber over Saliba just to save a little bit of cash. But if you have the money, I would potentially consider going for Saliba over Timber. Now, game by game, I actually think Timber he might be a slightly better option with him just playing in a slightly more attacking position. But I would say with other fullbacks coming back fit, I would doubt his minutes long term. I think certainly for the next month or so, he's nailed on in that Arsenal team. But looking a bit longer term, when the likes of Ben White, you know, gets back into the team, his minutes could be a little bit less guaranteed. And I think if you're picking these defenders, you're just going to want to set and forget. So I'd probably, if I had the cash, probably go for Saliba instead of Timber. But again, I've got money saving with this team, so everyone can afford it. Gabriel, I genuinely think, is the best defender in the game. You know, Arsenal, one of the best defences in the league. Gabriel just looking like an absolute monster from set pieces. Could have scored again in Game Week 17. I believe he hit the crossbar from a corner. Yeah, Arsenal looking really good defensively. Gabriel looking really good from an attacking perspective. Speaking of another team that looked good defensively, Liverpool. I think they're by far and away the best team in the league this season. And yeah, Trent looks to be back amongst the attacking returns again. Leicester at home, West Ham and Man United. I think there's returns in all three of those games. Couple of players to note on the bench as well. I spoke about Fabianski. Milenkovic of Nottingham Forest. I said how good I think that Nottingham Forest defence is. I think Milenkovic is my personal pick of the Forest defenders. Despite Aina scoring recently, I think Milenkovic, well, it's proven he is the one that's put up the better attacking underlying numbers of all of the Forest defences, just due to his size and threat from set pieces. And if you go for Milenkovic over Aina, it saves you 0.4 million. And yeah, I back him as the better option. And I went for Howson of Bournemouth as well. I think he's probably the best real cheap defender in the game, I would say. You could go for the likes of Castagna and Anderson of Fulham as well. But I personally just back the Bournemouth fixtures a little bit more. And I think Bournemouth just have a little bit more solidity about them in defence. So yeah, goalkeeper and defenders. On to the midfield then, and before I get into the midfielders that I've actually picked, what I wanted to say is I think my favourite structure for a midfield in FPL right now, my favourite formation, you can guess what the formation is going to be, because I've got 3 defenders, 4 midfielders. It's a 3-4-3, and I think it involves picking Salah and Palmer. I think they're nailed on, right? And then 2 budget midfielders, really cheap ones. I think there are so many sub 6 million midfielders in the game that you should pick three. If you can see that I've got Ahmad on the bench. I've gone for Sarr, Rodgers, and Ahmad as my picks. You can pick three of them, and then I would just stick with them. The only problem I guess this team does create is you do have a bit of a benching headaches most weeks. Like the decision to start Sarr, Rodgers, or Ahmad could change kind of week on week. And even in game week 18, I would suggest, you know, the decision between starting Rodgers and Ahmad is pretty close. I've got Rodgers in at the moment, but, you know, you could easily justify starting Ahmad ahead of Wolves away, right? I think, you know, that's a very justifiable fixture to play him in. So an alternative you could do, if you do have a little bit of extra cash in your bank, is potentially upgrade one of these midfielders to a little bit more expensive. I'm seeing Bruno Fernandes, Odegaard as popular options as well. And then you could potentially downgrade Ahmad if you need to someone like Dibbling, and then that would stop you having a benching headache week on week, basically. But yeah, I think, like I said, my favourite structure for a midfield in FPL, particularly if I was on my wildcard, would be to have Salah and Palmer, two premiums. I don't even need to talk about Salah and Palmer, really, do I? In terms of, you know, their projected points, fixtures coming up, etc., etc. They look great. They're two of the best players in the game so far. They're nailed onto every wildcard draft I think anyone's looking at. And then alongside those two, I'd have the cheap midfielders. And my three picks are Sarr, Rodgers, and Ahmad. Okay, and I think the best front three in the game right now is Nicholas Jackson, Isak, and Chris Wood. You look at Chelsea's fixtures for the next sort of 10 game weeks, and I just don't see a reason to ever get rid of Nicholas Jackson, even though his form has not been amazing in very recent games. I think he's proven enough this season to suggest that he's kind of turned the corner of poor goal-scoring form that he was in last year. He's really turned it around and actually been able to put the ball in the back of the net this year. And yeah, Chelsea's fixtures coming up look great. Providing he doesn't get that fourth, fifth yellow card. I mean, he's got one more week. It's obviously going to get reset in game week 19. So hopefully he gets through that one more week without getting a yellow, and then it's all reset and good to go. But yeah, that is a risk. But I would say I think he's been not threatened, but Enzo has done a good job. Enzo Maresca has done a good job, basically, of convincing him not to get that other yellow card, because Jackson can be bit of a petulant child at times with kicking the ball away, mouthing off of the ref, etc. That's where most of his yellow cards come from. But he hasn't done that since he had his fourth yellow. And I think Enzo's played a blinder and put a big fine basically on him getting a fifth yellow card. So yeah, Nicholas Jackson I think is a great option. Isak is the man of the moment in FPL from a forwards perspective, in great form. Next three fixtures, you know, on the face of it might sound tough, but I mean, I'd personally back him to score against Aston Villa, Man United and Tottenham, no problem. And yeah, he's great. Well, still great value, I would say. He's going up in price. He'll probably be 9 million by the time this video actually comes out. But yeah, I mean, I think he's the best forward in the game. There's no doubt in my mind that he'd be in my wildcard draft. And then that leaves space for one more forward. And I think based on form this season and last, I think Chris Wood now has 24 goals in his last 37 Premier League appearances. I mentioned this on my transfer plans video just gone, but 37 games over the last two seasons is basically a full season. And if you have a striker at 6.6 million that scores 24 goals in a season, you would say they're genuinely one of the best players in the game. And that's what Chris Wood has done in his last 37 Premier League appearances. It's not just this season, you know, where he's been in exceptional form. It extends back to last year as well. And yeah, I think he's the third best striker in the game. There is obviously one that is missing as well. So that's obviously the draft. I've suggested some potential alternatives in all of the positions as well. So goalkeeper-wise, like I said, Sells is in this team, but I think there are 4 genuine alternatives that you could comfortably pick if you wanted to. I think Pickford and Everton particularly have proved themselves defensively, I think, in recent games. Pickford's obviously going to make a load of saves as well. And yeah, obviously keep a decent amount of clean sheets, as we're seeing. Onana of Man United, I said it already, but I back him to be the top scoring keeper come the end of the season. So if you can get to him, he's probably worth having over Sells. Dean Henderson and Sanchez, both under 5 million. I think they're the best of the rest behind Sells at under 5 million. Dean Henderson is currently only 4.4 million. So he is good value. And if you're really struggling for cash or want to upgrade elsewhere, maybe he is a route to go. Crystal Palace have pretty decent fixtures for the longest term. And I would say up until at least the Arsenal game. But I don't know, I'd write off that Arsenal game as a bit of an anomaly where they conceded 5. I don't think they're going to concede 5 goals every game. I think Glasner has them kind of turning a corner. and they were finding a bit of form ahead of that Arsenal game. Their fixtures are good. I think he's a good option. And then Sanchez of Chelsea. I really like the fixtures for Chelsea for the next like 7 or 8 games. Game weeks are lovely. But one thing that does worry me about Chelsea is Maresca having, well, it's probably my theory of Maresca, but it extends just beyond me having this theory, is him having a weekend squad and a midweek team. And we've seen Sanchez get subbed, well, benched already in the Premier League this season. And it could happen again. So that would be my little bit of doubt around Sanchez. I've already got Huijsen in here, actually. But Kerkez, I think, is a really good Bournemouth defender as well. I don't see the justification for picking him over Huijsen. I keep saying his name wrong as well. I've got Saliba in there. This is just from my shortlist on the team selection. Well, I don't have Saliba, sorry. I've got Timber. I've already mentioned Saliba as a potential replacement for Timber if you wanted to, and you wanted to upgrade a little bit. Lewis Hall, I think, is the standout Newcastle defender and is one of the best sub 5 million defenders in the game. Van Dijk, as long as he stays fit, he's going to play every game for Liverpool. Decent bit of threat, I'd say, from set pieces. But in my opinion, Trent is the one to go for. But if you wanted to double up on Liverpool defence, I think Trent and Van Dijk is a way to go. Ashley Young and Mykolenko have been absolutely nailing the points so far this season. I think Young's got his 5th yellow card in game week 17, so he's not ready for 18. But Mykolenko has been absolutely bagging the points. So both of these guys are decent options. I don't know. Might just be my opinion, me being a bit biased, but I just couldn't bring myself to pick an Everton defender. And then Colwill, I think he's good. You know, he's probably going to start every game. Well, I say he's probably going to start every game. He is the most nailed, is what I should say. He's the most nailed Chelsea defender. But in a similar sort of conversation to Sanchez, if Maresca rolls out this midweek weekend team, then he's obviously not going to play every game. So that's a little bit of doubt I'd have around Colwill. Midfielders, I think Bruno Fernandes is a good option. Brennan Johnson, if you can look past some recent benchings, Brennan Johnson's numbers this season have been absolutely brilliant. And I watched the Spurs-Liverpool game. Could have had a goal in that game, albeit for a fantastic save from Alisson. I've got Rodgers, Ahmad and Sarr in my midfield. But potential alternatives at that price point would be Iwobi, Enzo and Semenyo. I think those are the other 3 you could pick. So there are 6 players, 6 midfielders, sub 6 million that are worth picking. I said my favourites are Sarr, Rodgers and Ahmad, the ones I've gone for. I think WILDCARD could be pretty good as well. He's going to be taking penalties for Arsenal with no Saka in the team. Son, he hasn't been performing as well as he has in previous seasons, but you can never write him off as an option. And then I've put Jota/Diaz there. I just personally don't trust their minutes with Gakpo and Darwin Núñez. You know, there's 2 players for that left wing and striker spot for Liverpool. And then the forwards, I really actually think it's a bit slim pickings at the moment beyond Jackson, Isak and Wood as to who I'd actually have up front. So if you can get to him, I dropped in Erling Haaland. If you believe that Man City could turn their form around, he could be a fantastic differential as well. So I'll just go back to the team to finish off the video. Those are the alternatives, and this would be my favourite wildcard draft. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. I'm not quite sure how many people still have their wildcard chip left to use, but rather than just, you know, if you've got your wildcard chip left to use, I think it's useful for people just to maybe get an idea of who I think the best, well, what I think the best team in the game is. So if you enjoyed the video and found it useful, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if there are any changes you'd make to this wildcard draft. And yeah, I think that's everything. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Gold and Goal channel. Should be just there on your screen. That leaves me to say thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.